had COVID in Sept 2020, I lost my sense of smell, and with it every nuance in my taste palette. For example, lemonade, no matter the kind. Just bubbly and sweet. The last couple of months some scents are coming back, usually the nasty ones. So yay, I smell poop. The sweetness of mango rediscovered in September 2020. I contracted COVID-19, leaving me with a permanently altered sense of smell and, by extension, a dullness in my palate. What was once a vibrant experience of flavors became a monotonous blur. A perfect example being lemonade, which, regardless of its type, was reduced to a simplistic sweetness and effervescence. Over the past couple of months, I've started to regain some of my sense of smell, but unfortunately, it has been the pungent and unpleasant aromas that have returned first. The ability to detect unpleasant odors like waste is certainly a welcome, yet unwelcome, development. Today, however, something extraordinary happened. I finally experienced the taste of mango as it was meant to be. No longer was it just a generic sweetness and texture, but a symphony of flavors and memories that transport me to a place of joy and serenity. As my favorite fruit, mango was supposed to evoke the essence of summertime, carefree happiness, and paradise. And, after over 1.5 years of deprivation, it finally did. It's a trivial thing, perhaps, but the sheer magnitude of this moment has brought me to tears. For the past AITA for cornering my husband, my H and I have 2 kids together, 3F and 2 months. I had the kids over at my mom's most of the day yesterday, leaving him free to do whatever he wanted minus a few small house chores. When I got home, the baby needed a bath. My 3-yo wah, am I the asshole for pressuring my husband? My husband and I have 2 young children, a 3-year-old daughter and a 2-month-old son. Yesterday, I left the kids at my mom's house for most of the day, giving my husband some freedom to do as he pleased, with only a few light household tasks left undone. Upon my return home, it became apparent that the baby needed a bath. I suggested to my 3-year-old that she go and entertain herself with her father while I attended to the baby's hygiene. However, my husband reacted with hostility towards me, claiming that I had forced him into spending time with our daughter, which he termed as being cornered. The situation rapidly escalated into a massive argument. Did I overstep my bounds? AITA for telling my black friend she'd be able to get any man? My friend, Black 21F, and I, Asian 19F, are both college students, and we met during a mentoring program. We've become kind of close and she let me know she has been crushing on this white man. She told me, duh, was I the asshole for minimizing my friend's fears? My friend, Black 21F, and I, Asian 19F, are both college students who met during a mentoring program. We've developed a close bond and she recently confided in me about her attraction to a white man. She expressed her doubts about pursuing him due to concerns about racial differences and stereotypes. However, I responded by telling her that any man would be fortunate to have her, implying that her feelings wouldn't be reciprocated. My friend became upset as she felt that I was dismissing her valid experiences and biases as a black woman. She believed that I should have taken her concerns seriously instead of offering an overly optimistic perspective. TLDR AITA for telling your friend that any man would be lucky to have her, minimizing her concerns about racial differences? My BF comes 9 times in a couple hours. Is this normal? When do you think the max will be reached? When we go for an hour, he comes around 4 times. If we go for 2, it's around 7 to 8, and yesterday we went for about 2.5 hours and he came at least 9 times. As far as we can are, my partner's sexual endurance seems almost superhuman. Recently, we've noticed a significant increase in his stamina. In 60 minutes, he's capable of releasing semen around 4 times, whereas 2 hours yields 7 to 8 episodes, and in our last session, which lasted approximately 2.5 hours, he managed to climax at least 9 times. The quality of our intimate encounters has been consistently improving, and we often reach orgasm simultaneously. I'm struggling to comprehend the extent of our heightened intimacy and the frequency with which we're experiencing climax. In fact, I might be reaching orgasm more often than him. I'm left questioning whether our experiences are within normal parameters for both of us. I simply had to express my astonishment and share this unusual phenomenon with someone. TIFU by playing with my wife's dough happened recently. The wife has pinched off a couple of kids, so her stomach is not taut. Anyway, we were getting a bit froggy and, instead of thinking with my smaller brain, my actual brain decided it would be funny to knead her stomach. The dough debacle. A tale of needed folly. It occurred recently. My wife, a seasoned mother of two, has been through a few rounds of childbirth, and as a result, her midsection isn't as smooth as a freshly baked loaf. My partner and I were in a playful mood, but in my zeal to entertain, I overstepped the boundaries. I began massaging her stomach as if it were a lump of pliable dough. "What are you doing?" she asked, a hint of annoyance creeping into her voice. "Kneading the dough," I replied, attempting to keep the levity alive. If facial expressions could be deadly, I'd be a goner. The look she gave me was stern, to say the least. TLDR. Dough didn't rise to the occasion. Edit to clarify, I adore my wife's body, and I appreciate the creative puns and lighthearted comments. If I had the chance to rephrase the TLDR, I would have opted for something more straightforward: dough. Dead sister being sued. My sister died 14 months ago. She lived with my mom, who has not been in her right mind ever since. A process server handed my mom a debt collection lawsuit the other day, and I'm not sure how to handle it. Only my sister is named. We never did anything. My sister passed away 14 months ago, and her living situation had been a concern for our family. She resided with our mother, who has been grappling with mental health issues since the loss. Recently, a process server delivered a debt collection lawsuit to our home, and I'm unsure how to proceed. The lawsuit only mentions my sister's name, leaving me to wonder if it was a mistake or if there's been an oversight. Given my sister's minimal possessions, consisting of discarded items and unworn clothes in her room, there's no significant assets to claim as part of her estate. We have no savings, retirement funds, or property to speak of, and she didn't own a vehicle or any valuable jewelry. I've been advised that hiring a lawyer to handle this matter could cost upwards of $2,500, but our family's financial situation is precarious, with our mother relying on Social Security and myself struggling to make ends meet. We're in need of guidance on how to navigate this situation. Edit. Given the information provided, the best course of action would be to contact a legal aid organization or a low-cost lawyer who can provide guidance on how to handle the situation. Since there are no significant assets involved, it's possible that the lawsuit was filed today. My 19F boyfriend, 20M, said he was in the mood to kill me. WTF? Edit to update. I just wanted you all to know that last night while he was sleeping, I took my dog Daisy and left my boyfriend in the middle of the night. I am at a safe location, staying with family. I'm still trying to process what my boyfriend said to me today. It's left me feeling shocked and shaken. A little background. My boyfriend and I have been together for about a year now, and for the most part, our relationship has been amazing. We do have a pretty intense sex life, and I'm usually quite comfortable with that. However, recently, he's been pushing some boundaries that make me uncomfortable. I enjoy certain aspects of our intimate encounters, like choking and spanking, but only in the comfort of our own home. The other day, while we were at the park with our dog, he spanked me in public, which caught me off guard. Later that day, during one of our intimate moments, he started choking me again, which I usually enjoy. But this time, it got to a point where I couldn't breathe, and I used our signal to stop. He just looked at me and said he wasn't going to stop because he was in the mood to kill me. I thought it was just a momentary lapse and let it slide. But it happened again, and it was even more unsettling. He was staring at me, whispering sweet nothings, and then it turned dark. He said I was his TIFU by not killing a wasp when I had the chance. TLDR at bottom. This story begins 3 days ago and concluded yesterday morning. This is the most exciting shit that has happened to me in weeks, people. I have, despite loving the outdoors, never been stung by a wasp. The most epic fail in wasp hunting history. TLDR at bottom. This tale begins 3 days ago and concludes yesterday morning. 3 days ago, I witnessed the most electrifying experience of my life, and it had nothing to do with TV or video games. It all started in my bathroom when I encountered a wasp hovering around my shower curtains, its buzzing a warning that my tranquil morning routine was about to be disrupted. I sprang into action, hastily brainstorming ways to dispatch the unwelcome visitor. After discovering the point of entry, a slightly ajar window, I took measures to fortify myself against the wasp's attack. Donning multiple layers of clothing, including sweatshirts, pants, a shirt turban, a beanie, and gloves, I became a human fortress, leaving only a narrow slit for my eyes. Armed with the Executioner, a versatile electric tennis racket, I cautiously approached the bathroom, prepared for battle. The wasp had taken up a strategic position behind the lights above my sink, but I was undeterred, grabbing a shirt to distract it and flush it out of its hiding spot. In a moment of triumph, I thought I had outsmarted the wasp, but it regained its AITA for telling my grandparents about my step-siblings destroying my jewelry. My mother died when I was 10. My father married a Goyish woman less than a year later, who promptly did her best to have as many children as she could, and had 3 in as many years. She has 2 older kids. Am I the asshole for telling my grandparents about my step-siblings ruining my valuable jewelry? I lost my mother at a young age. She passed away when I was just 10. My father remarried a woman with 3 children from a previous relationship, and they welcomed 2 more additions shortly after. The household has been filled with 6 kids ever since. I'm the only grandchild from my mother's side and the only granddaughter in the family. My grandparents have a tradition of gifting me jewelry, and I inherited my mother's collection after her passing. Our family's customs emphasize the importance of authentic jewelry, and I have a vast collection worth around $100,000. I'm quite particular about the value and sentimental worth of each piece. When I returned home from visiting a friend, I noticed that my step-siblings had left a heap of my jewelry on the playroom floor. It appeared they had been playing rough and had smashed or shot at many of the pieces with BB guns. I was outraged and immediately alerted my father, who arrived with his wife and dismissed the situation. The damage was substantial, with several heirlooms beyond repair. My stepmother didn't seem to care about the destruction, instead pretending to scold her children and later AITA for quitting on the spot even though we were understaffed, and it made my manager cry. I worked at a retail store in the mall. The store is divided into men's, women's and children's clothes. I always worked women's, and on the weekdays I was always the only employee. Was I in the wrong for walking out in the middle of my shift due to my manager's questionable behavior and leaving the store shorthanded? I worked at a retail store in the mall, which was organized into distinct sections for men's, women's, and children's clothing. During weekdays, I was often the sole employee in the women's department. On my last shift, 2 colleagues and I arrived for our scheduled hours. Our manager, Lisa, discreetly pulled me aside and mentioned that a person claiming to be my father had called the store 5 times, inquiring about my schedule. I was perplexed by this claim, as it sounded nothing like my father's behavior. I even contacted him, and he assured me that he had made no such calls. Feeling uneasy, I inquired as to whether Lisa had indeed disclosed my schedule to this individual. She admitted to doing so and appeared unbothered by my concerns. I expressed my disapproval of her actions, emphasizing that she had no right to share sensitive information with a stranger. Lisa became defensive and dismissed my concerns as excessive, stating it was no big deal. However, I found this attitude unacceptable. In that moment, I felt compelled to stand up for my rights and quit my job. Fat acceptance is bullshit. Giving up on exercise and the effort to maintain a healthy body is not a sign of strength, but of weakness. Obesity is a curable disease, not a personality or trait. I hate when women try to sweeten up their shit reality using words like plus size. The notion of fat acceptance is misguided. Abandoning a commitment to physical fitness and well-being is a sign of resignation, not resilience. Obesity is a treatable condition, not an inherent characteristic of a person. I take issue with women who sugarcoat the harsh reality of their weight by using euphemisms like plus-sized, instead of acknowledging the fact of their obesity. Let's examine the reality of fat acceptance. It's predominantly a movement centered around women, with a societal perception that overweight men are not typically seen as attractive. Edit 1. If you're overweight, you should certainly strive to have a positive self-image, but don't give up on making an effort to improve your fitness. Accepting that your weight is simply a product of genetics may be a convenient excuse, but it's still a choice you're making about your body. Edit 2. I'm not dictating what others should do with their lives. I'm simply sharing a candid perspective. As someone who is 30 pounds overweight myself, I'm speaking from personal experience when I say that acknowledging the consequences of our choices is essential to making progress. TIFU by continuously making a customer angry when delivering them pizza. I used to deliver pizza. It was actually the most fun job I have ever had. I am usually really good with people, but I delivered pizza to a house like I have done a million times. As I walk up to I once had the misfortune of delivering pizza for a living. It was actually the most enjoyable job I've ever had, but my interactions with a particular customer left a lot to be desired. I delivered a pizza to a house that I've been to multiple times before, and upon arrival, the overpowering smell of smoke and the loud music suggested a party was in full swing. However, the occupant didn't answer the door, so I had to knock louder to get their attention. When the massive guy with long hair answered, he berated me for knocking too loudly. I apologized and continued on my way. The following weekend, I received the same address, but this time, it was Unit B in a fourplex. As I made my way down the concrete stairs to deliver the pizza, I knocked on the door. To my surprise, the tall, bald guy who answered claimed responsibility for yelling at me the previous week, stating that he was the new owner of the fourplex. He had indeed shaved his head, which threw me off entirely. I apologized for not recognizing him and quickly left. The pattern continued the following weekend when I received the same address again. As I made my way down the concrete steps, my pizza bag got caught. AITA for calling my body-positive coworker unhealthy, deluded, and bitter, after some rude comments she made about me. I'm currently working part-time at a restaurant on my university's campus. I mostly work shifts with this one girl, we'll call her Anna, who is all for the "Am I the asshole, AITA?" for calling out my coworker's hypocrisy after she made a string of hurtful comments about my appearance and health habits. I'm currently working part-time at a university restaurant on campus, where I frequently work shifts alongside a coworker, Anna, who is a self-proclaimed advocate of the body positivity movement. While I respect her enthusiasm for promoting self-acceptance, I disagree with her approach when it's used to justify unhealthy behavior. Anna frequently comments on my eating habits, suggesting that I should indulge in the restaurant's unhealthy food options. She'll often say things like, "You should try one of our burgers, you could use a few extra pounds," or, "You look skinnier than last week, you should stop eating salads every day." She even feigns concern for me, asking if I'm struggling with my weight before telling me that I look too skinny to be healthy. These comments have been hurtful and frustrating, especially given our workplace dynamic. What's even more galling is that Anna herself doesn't practice what she preaches. She gorges on the restaurant's food, drinks excessive amounts of soda, and doesn't engage in regular exercise. This behavior is WIBTA if I refused to attend my cousin's wedding after she asked me to dye my ginger hair. Yes, I'm aware that my cousin posted here and oh the irony as I showed her this sub last year, but I really don't care if she sees this, maybe it'll hammer the point home. And I doubt she would. I be the asshole, WIBTA, if I refused to attend my cousin's wedding after she demanded I dye my ginger hair? I'm aware that my cousin posted about our situation, and it's ironic that I showed her this sub last year. However, I'm not concerned if she sees this post, as it might drive the point home. My cousin, Amy, is getting married with a blue, green, and purple theme for the wedding. Everyone, including the groom, is expected to wear these colors, but Amy seems to have a problem with my hair color. I take issue with Amy's description of my hair as flaming Merida red. In reality, my hair is more of a strawberry blonde or ginger blonde shade. I've included actual pictures of my hair to demonstrate its color, not someone else's Instagram post. Amy has been quite insistent that everyone follow her dress code, going so far as to ask people with long hair to cut it. However, she's made no effort to accommodate people with unique hair colors like mine. My parents and sister have long, ginger hair, but Amy never mentioned anything to them. It seems to be just me who's being targeted, and I'm starting to feel like I'm being AITA for going no contact with my parents after learning they had lied to me about my allergies all my life. Hey everyone, I am 19 years old and my parents are in their 50s. For as long as I can remember, I have been allergic to several things: dairy, wheat, flour, gluten. A difficult decision. Going no contact with my parents. I'm 19 years old, and my parents are in their 50s. For as long as I can remember, I've had various allergies that my parents have strictly managed. These allergies include dairy, wheat, flour, gluten, and legumes. Our household has been meticulous about avoiding these substances, often at the expense of social gatherings and birthday celebrations. While other kids enjoyed common breakfast foods, I'd have fish and pickled vegetables, and at birthday parties, I'd opt for an apple instead of cake. This rigorous approach to my diet has been in place since I was a young child, and I never questioned it until recently. A couple of months ago, I attended my aunt's birthday party and had a slice of brownies made with almond flour, as she knew I had allergies. However, my aunt's panicked expression and subsequent rush to get my EpiPen raised some suspicions. When I discovered that my mother had switched the plates to avoid any potential issues, I couldn't help but feel puzzled. This decision didn't make sense to me, but I chose to let the matter rest for the time being. Days turned into weeks, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that something tifu when I didn't beat my wife after she won a football video game against me. Obligatory. This happened 6 years ago. Post notice. TLDR. Wife pulls off an unbelievable video game upset on me. I yell at her and a tickle fight ensues. Cops come and I have to convince them tick. The time I fooled the police with a tickling session. Obligatory. This happened 6 years ago. Post notice. TLDR. I lose a heated video game to my wife. I yell at her, we engage in a tickle fight, and the cops show up, but I manage to convince them it was just a game. It's a typical Tuesday evening when my wife and I decide to pass the time before dinner by playing a game of Madden on our PlayStation. We're in a one-bedroom apartment, surrounded by neighbors on all sides, and I'm ahead in the game until my wife pulls off a miraculous comeback. She scores a touchdown, does an onside kick, and recovers it with just seconds left on the clock. Her final move is a 60-yard field goal, which she nails perfectly, securing her victory. Enraged, I jump off the couch, shouting, "What an unbelievable upset. You're kidding me, right? I'm going to take my frustrations out on you." My wife bursts out laughing, and I pounce on her, tickling her mercilessly. She tries to escape, but I chase her into the bedroom, still tickling her. After a few minutes of this tickle battle tifu by discovering a dark secret from a sex tape I made about 2 years ago, I was still living in my strict religious parents' house and the only way for me to find a place to have sex was to use my dad's office. My dad owns a small advertising business, so on some weekends, 2 years ago, I was living in my strict parents' house, where I often found myself sneaking into my dad's office to have sex. My excuse was usually that I needed to work on a project and needed better internet connection. One girl I was with at the time asked me if I'd ever made a sex tape, and I lied, saying no. She eventually convinced me to make one, and I did, but I hid it and never really went back to it. Fast forward 2 years, I'm now living in my own house with a girlfriend who's away for a few months. I was telling her about the sex tape and she asked me to delete it, but I decided to watch it one last time before getting rid of it. I was alone in my house, it was late at night, and I was smoking a blunt. I put on my headphones, started watching the tape, and began to jerk off. As I was listening to the sounds of the girl I made the tape with, I suddenly heard a deep voice in my head say, "Why? Why?" I was taken aback, panicked, and wondered if my conscience was talking to me or if my girlfriend was somehow magically aware of my actions. I tried to calm down tifu by buying a life-size sex doll. Obligatory. I bought it 3 days ago, but I just got it today. So, I have considered getting a doll before because y'all know, it's tits and ass on demand. I justified it by saying it'll save me time from having to go out and get girls. I made a huge mistake by buying a life-size sex doll. I finally got my life-size sex doll yesterday, but only 3 days after ordering it. I've often thought about getting one of these dolls because of their convenience. They offer instant gratification without the hassle of meeting someone in person. I also rationalized that it would be a good companion while I'm alone at home. However, after researching the $3,000 price tag of some of these dolls, I opted for a more affordable option that cost around $1,000. I didn't want to spend that much money on something I might regret. When the doll arrived in a large box, I was surprised by its weight. It weighs around 30 kilograms. I had underestimated the effort required to move it into my bedroom. Once I opened the box, I started removing the packaging, and my eyes landed on its feet, which initially caught me off guard. As I continued to unpack the doll, I was drawn to its synthetic breasts, which, while decent, couldn't compare to the real thing. I was excited to assemble the doll and was surprised to find that its head wasn't securely attached. After unwrapping the head, I attached it to the doll's body. To my 39M wife, 40F, slapped our daughter, 16F, after she came out as gay. I need help dealing with my wife and my daughter. I'm actually an immigrant from Mexico, so my English is average at best. I must admit that I was really homophobic and racist growing up. That was how My wife and I have been together for nearly 20 years. As an immigrant from Mexico, I've worked hard to adapt to my new life in America. My wife has been instrumental in helping me adjust, and I'm grateful for the positive impact she's had on my life. However, my journey hasn't been without its challenges. Growing up, I was raised with strong prejudices against the LGBTQ+ community. But as I've grown and learned, I've come to realize the importance of acceptance and understanding. My wife has been a constant source of support and guidance, and I'm proud to say that I've become a more open-minded and empathetic person because of her. Recently, our 16-year-old daughter came to us with news that she wanted to share. She told us that she's been thinking about her relationships and that she's realized she's gay. I must admit that it took some time for me to process this information, but I quickly reassured her that I love her no matter what and that she'll always be my daughter. I felt a sense of pride knowing that she trusts me enough to come to me with this news. After our conversation, I offered to take her out for dinner, and she mentioned that she'd love to have my TIFU by loosing my bowels in the parking lot storm drain of my local supermarket. NSFW. Oh my god, this is so embarrassing and literally happened about 30 minutes ago. So I have bowel issues, clearly, and I range between super constipation or the exact opposite. I am 39F and W. Totally fouled up, TIFU, in my local supermarket parking lot storm drain. Oh my goodness, this is absolutely mortifying, and it happened just about 30 minutes ago. It's no secret that I have bowel issues, and I seem to switch between being extremely constipated or the complete opposite. At 39 years old, I've experienced both ends of the spectrum, and tonight I was dealing with the plugged-up issue for days. I decided to drive the 2 miles to the 24/7 grocery store to grab some suppositories or laxatives, hoping to alleviate my discomfort. It was 3 a.m., so I thought I'd be in and out quickly with minimal people around. As I was driving, I felt an intense urge to go, but my body was still struggling to move things along. I was close to the store and realized I wouldn't make it home in time, so I mentally prepared to dash to the bathroom as soon as I arrived. However, the bathroom was located at the back of the store, and my situation was becoming increasingly dire. I was sweating, crying, and panting, trying to control my breathing as I sped through the parking lot. I was planning to pull behind the store and find a secluded AITA for giving back everything my family bought for my son. My wife and I welcomed our son into the world early this month. Prior to his birth, we had been given a lot of very nice clothes and toys by my parents for him. My mill also made some pretty incredible clothes and blank. Am I the asshole for taking back the gifts my in-laws gave my son? My wife and I recently welcomed our son into the world. Prior to his birth, my parents and my mother-in-law had given us a substantial amount of clothing and toys for him. My mother-in-law, in particular, created several exquisite handmade garments and blankets, which hold sentimental value for her due to her own challenging childhood. My wife's family struggled with poverty for a significant portion of her life, with her father abandoning them and leaving her mother with a substantial amount of debt. My mother-in-law's resourcefulness and love helped to provide for her children, often creating their clothing herself to save money and avoid potential bullying. These handmade items have become treasured possessions for my wife, reminding her of the love and effort her mother invested in them. However, after our son was born, my mother-in-law visited us with a bag of store-bought clothes, claiming she wanted him to have more. I noticed her appearance was slightly guilty, and when my wife took a nap, I inquired about the situation. Initially, she explained that she simply wanted her grandson to have more clothes, but she later apologized for embarrassing us. I discovered that her behavior was prompted by my AITA for telling the judge of a scholarship competition that if she already knew who she wanted to win, to cut the crap and just let us all go home. I'm in high school, we had a final presentation before winter break, and we had judges from the community come in to reward the B. Was I the asshole for bluntly telling a judge in a scholarship competition that if she'd already made up her mind, we should all just go home? I'm a high school student who recently participated in a final presentation competition before winter break. Our presentations were evaluated by local community judges who would award scholarship money to the best performance. One of our classroom judges, a school board member and mother, was supposed to be impartial, but it was clear she had a bias towards her daughter's best friend. This friend's presentation was subpar, heavily plagiarized, and not original. I noticed she was working on it in the computer lab earlier, and it was obvious she wasn't the one who put in the effort. The judge, however, continued to praise her presentation excessively, even after others had finished presenting. It was awkward and distracting, and I couldn't help but feel frustrated. As I prepared to give my presentation, I noticed the judge was disengaged and checking her phone, clearly not paying attention to anyone but her favorite. I decided to speak up. During my presentation, I told the judge that it was apparent she had already made up her mind and wasn't taking the other presentations seriously. I asked if we could just end the competition and go home.